My name is David O'Kelly and you're very welcome to KPMG's Capital Ideas. Today I'm speaking with Seamus Farrell. Seamus is the founder and CEO of SF Engineering. About 2 years ago, we worked with SF Engineering on a private equity transaction. Today I'm going to talk about the business and that deal and how it's impacted the company. Seamus, you're very welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, David. Thank you very much.
Maybe to kind of start off easy, can you tell me a little bit more about SF Engineering, please?
Well, I wish I could give you a glamorous business view, book review of how we started SF, but it was really a company that was built on opportunity. I worked for another engineering company, and part of what we done was taking American multinationals and doing the setup and the running of their, I guess, electrical and mechanical and getting the factories up and running. In that time, we had a lot of engineering companies that were very much press tool turning, pretty precision engineering companies in Ireland. And then on the other hand, we had a lot of people who were very much in the agricultural side. And whenever we needed purpose-built machinery, we ended up having to make it ourselves. So 82 to 84 was an experiment of start a company, look for business in this sector and see how it works.
See an opportunity and go for it.
84 was kind of the start. At 84, we decided we were going to continue with the experiment. And the company got a little bit more focused after that. And in 86, we started working in the food industry. And we made a decision maybe the year after, 2 years after that, to work 100% in the food industry because we've seen the food industry in Ireland developing. We've seen that market being served by all overseas companies. And we started in the fish industry, and our first big projects was that of pelagic fish in the local port of Killybegs.
Right.
And we worked with those companies. And in the history of dealing with that and what we were building for that, we then came across people who started asking for solutions, and we had no idea what they meant by solutions. So we got a little bit more involved in that and realized that if we had partnerships with various different suppliers of equipment with it, and then we learned how to do integration, and from that then where we are today, selling full systems, design and build globally. That's the shortened history of SF.
And so food production solutions today, like what does that entail for, and what's maybe a typical customer?
So what's an acceptable customer? So, I mean, we'll kind of come back to that, I guess, in another way, but in regard to what do, we don't go near the kill of any of the animals, but we take beef from the carcass to the supermarket shelf. We take the same on poultry and the same on fish.
Right.
So what's our expertise? Our expertise has grown very much from being a basic engineering company now to having very strong panel of technical food people within SF that understand what adds value for the customer. And so we're designing around shelf life, easy wash down, increasing yield, increasing throughput, increasing productivity. So what are we doing in brief? We're trying to make cheaper, healthier, safer food with our customers.
And does it tend to be, I presume for your customers, this is a once in a 10-year investment?
Yes is the answer, but like you asked, like again, why are we in the private equity area now at the moment? Like our companies, the companies we served 20 years ago are now much bigger.
Yeah.
So the companies that had one factory now probably has 10, 15, 20 factories, or they've been involved in takeovers with other companies, so that while it was a lot of small single accounts in the beginning, it's now turning more into bigger account management with bigger accounts.
Yeah. So in the early days, maybe low levels of automation, making production a little bit more efficient. Now it's traceability, high degrees of automation, food safety, yield management.
Food safety being extremely important.
Yeah. And in terms of maybe the trends over the next 5 years, in terms of where the business goes?
We've grown at 14% year on year in this market over the last 30 years.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. So again, our growth as we see it for the next 5-year period is changed, as in we intend to double what we're doing in our organic growth. And we're very much down the road on a very sensible plan to grow that, and with a view then to adding in some acquisition into that as well.
Yeah, and so you have brought private equity partners on board. Does that change the attitude to growth? Does, like, clearly 14% over 13 years or 30 years, that's quite a bit of compounding. Does the private equity kind of increase the pressure again?
I guess we've been aiming for this for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And trying to build the size and the structure around SF and changing it as we've seen it from a very entrepreneurial driven company to maintaining the entrepreneurial side, but adding in professional management on top of that.
Yeah.
And so I guess maybe that's one of the things that made us attractive when we started to look for investment. But as we see it, yes, we will grow, and we will grow with a very strong team, and we will create very strong products for our customer. That's where we want to go to.
Yeah, and with I suppose, growth now with capital behind you, I can imagine in the early days, you had to bootstrap. You had to every punt back in the day had to go as far as it could.
I don't think we're any different than any other startup. I think the first 5 years is survival.
Yeah.
The next 5 years is trying to get some cash down.
Yeah.
And the struggle continues as you go on. And but it's profitability is important.
Yeah.
And investing that profitability back is important.
Yeah.
And so it's no different with our investment now at the moment. We will want to make the best use out of the money that we have available, and aid us through our growth period with that.
Yeah. And is the range of options wider in terms of new plants in other countries or acquisitions, whatever they might be?
I guess the discipline within our own company is changing all the time and becoming more professional as we're growing.
Yeah.
Reporting upward is new in some cases. I mean, you're always reporting upward in some respects because you've got bank money or you've got Enterprise Ireland or whoever. So you're always but when you're reporting up to a investment board, it's slightly different. But it's good. It brings a great discipline into the company, so that's good.
Yeah. And how, I guess, can we maybe delve a little bit more? So for someone listening is wondering, well, how if I bring in a private equity investor, how will my business change? Is there more formality in it? Can you make decisions as quickly as you could before, or do you need to produce a load of reports? How does it work on a day-to-day basis?
I think we would say, people have asked me about this before, and some people have asked for advice in regard to that. But sure, the question is the same. Have you yourself made a decision? This is the right thing for your company. I mean, it was a very simple decision for SF. We needed to grow. Why did we need to grow? Because we seen a situation where a lot of the Irish food producers are being bought up by either bigger internationals, and our belief is that by 2030 that you probably have about 10 major food producers globally. And therefore the supply chain into those has to get bigger. And what we've done by taking in private equity funding into the business is we've allowed ourselves the opportunity to grow safe. and grow safe for our employees and for our customers.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, there's only two things important to every company: having a loyal workforce and having a strong workforce and having strong customers. And those were the key things for me that we had to adhere to. But yes, I would say choose wisely. We chose very wisely. We're very happy with our equity partners.
Yeah. No. Good. 2 years in, it is great to hear that. We always hope relationship is so important. And when we talk to the private equity investors, one of the things they say is, as they get under the skin, they find out the founder is doing 2, 3, 4 jobs, and the team needs to expand afterwards to meet the expanded potential when the capital is available and so on. Has there been much change in your leadership team?
I think that's the hard part.
Yeah,
but that's the good part.
Yeah.
So you think you have to accept that, and you in your headspace you say you accept it sometimes, but actually whether you physically have or not, that's another story.
Yeah.
But we've gone through the structure of going from a GM structure on each factory, to now having a more corporate structure with operations director, technical director, financial director, sales director,
right,
and currently CEO position, of which I will probably step back out of that over the next period of time.
Right. Okay.
Then we'll probably bring a professional CEO into play on that.
And that decision around your own succession as CEO, was that something that was important going into the deal, or did that emerge subsequent?
I think that was part of the. I think that was part of the deal. That's part of what it's about. I mean, it's, can you make a decision to own a smaller part of a bigger company?
Yeah,
and that's the decision you're making.
Yeah. And let's say it's deeply personal. You founded this business, you nurtured it for 30 years, and then Well, much as you'd like to believe you can live forever, you'll not live forever, and your energy won't be as much as you get older. So therefore, it's the right thing to do. Or the role evolves.
Or the role involved, From that side, I mean, we were. What we done was very clear. We had a very defined decision we had made on it 10 years ago. And then it was a matter of getting the company to the right size and the right fit. And then I have to say that in regard to your own team at KPMG, highly recommend the process we went through with them. Very clear, very, very precise, very, very good at getting us in the best light, but more importantly, getting the right people in front of us. And that's what it's about. It's not about the price. It's not about the investment value. It's about having the people that you believe in as your investors.
And SF is a brilliant company, and we ran that process, and unsurprisingly, we had a lot of interest, and there was good chemistry with the various different options. And without getting into the kind of the individual personalities that were at the table at the time, what advice would you give to somebody about choosing the option that works for them?
I think you've got, for me, it was very, very simple. We were looking at an investor that was going to take the company to the next level. Somebody that we felt comfortable with, we felt had the vision, and we felt, more importantly, put the research into the company before the investment, and that was familiar with what they were buying. And in some cases, some of the companies we felt hadn't considered the company or the potential of the company, and for me that was worrying. Whereas with Ocon, it's been very much a process where they were, I think, more involved in the buying process or in the investment process than anybody else. It was clear through the process, they, as did others, but they invested heavily in relationship and getting to know you and so on. And knowing what the company does, which was more important.
Yeah. And a lot of founders sometimes say, well, okay, there was funds involved. SF is an attractive business. Could you achieve the same thing with debt? Why not do raise debt and take a dividend and invest in the company? Why did you do equity as opposed to maybe a leverage route?
Because we felt it's the right thing to do. We feel it's still the right thing to do. The integrity of the brand, the integrity of the company, the workforce that we have, the people that have invested their lifetime in the company, creating security for them going forward was mega important.
Yeah.
And so therefore, that was the key driver.
Yeah.
And bringing the brand to the next level, because we do believe SF, looking down the road, will be a multi-million pound brand and will be a global brand. And this is, we believe, is the best way to bring it there.
It takes a path to do that. Yeah. And for you personally, look, I've guess known you now for a few years. I know, like, absolutely family comes first, but passion of the business is pretty strong too. Does having a third party investor, around the table, did that change your personal view of decisions on the business and how to run the business?
No, because we're still invested in there.
Like, of course. We
still have a major holding,
without question,
and we still have a major investment in it. So no, nothing has changed on that side. It is allowing us to grow the company in a very structured and very professional manner, so that the company will grow to better things.
Yeah.
And there comes a time too. There comes a time when your success can become your failure. As in, it's easier to take chances when you have nothing to lose.
Yeah, in the early days.
As your company gets more secure, then your appetite for risks falls off a little bit again. So bringing in a professional team doesn't say we're not going to say we want to go out and take ridiculous risk, but it does open your opportunity to risk again.
Yeah, and I guess that's where I was going towards a little. And look, I think you, like, obviously with the growth, you always drove the business forward. But I have heard other founders say, you know what, it got to a point where, that risk taking that was required in the initial years was no longer required, but the personal position gets mixed in with the company prospects, and getting a little bit of distance there just helps in the decision making and helps drive the business forward.
Yeah, that's probably true. I mean, for me, it was slightly different, and I know I'm slightly different than some other entrepreneurs that I know. As in, I always ran the company as if it was somebody else's company.
That's a good discipline. Yeah.
And we always ran it as a corporate company. So even from the company being in its early days, we tried to keep that discipline in the company.
Yeah.
And not to take the company home in the evening, and to keep your decision making to your time at work. And that's easy to say, but probably harder in practice. But nevertheless, that it was ran like a corporate structure.
Maybe better to run it as a friend's car rather than a rental. But and if somebody was embarking on the path, if somebody is listening to you talk now and say, well, that sounds interesting. That sounds like some of the same factors that I have in my business. What advice would you give them? What things should they have on their mind?
I think the first thing is to find a partner like yourselves, and I have to say our process with KPMG was seamless, professional, and the team. I mean, they were out on their own in regard to professionalism and understanding the business, and wanting to understand the business, and want to understand the fit of the companies that the business would fit into, and bringing the right people to the table. Then the process after that's very much, I guess, you yourself have to get your head around the type of investment that works for you, because we had many different types of investments within that, from
lots of options.
Lots of options. So you've got to find the fit that that fits, and how much shareholding do you want to have left in the company?
Yeah.
How much do you want to put out into equity? And you got to make that decision yourself.
Yeah.
And understand what fits for you. But again, I would say choose wisely. It's a
partnership.
It's a partnership.
Yeah. No, absolutely isn't.
And don't be driven by the figures on the table. Be driven by the type of partner that you will respect and will respect you. And I think that's key important.
Yeah, and look, I do want to acknowledge and say thank you for your comments about the KPMG team. I know as a team, we were very proud of the deal that got done collectively with the SF team and our own team. And so maybe moving on to kind of living with private equity, and like ultimately, there can be a viewpoint that when you do a private equity deal, look, they get in, they have to get out at some point. Whether it's 3 years, 5 years, 7 years. Have they brought like an exit type mentality to the business, or a focus on an end line?
I think everyone's aware of the fact that they've got to come in and they've got to go out, and they've come in and they've invested their money in with a view to making profit and getting their money back. And we don't know what the next deal will look like, but for sure, the next deal will be stronger. We will have developed more key people within SF. We'll have developed more key services and machinery within the industry.
Yeah.
So therefore, we would like to think that, I know when we leave it, that there will be people that are in very middle management positions that will have accelerated up into stronger position in the next deal. So yes, I mean it's a win-win for everybody here. It's not, and who knows what the next deal will be.
Yeah.
But for sure, if we look at what we're doing within this space is to make the company stronger. Yeah.
No, and absolutely, I say, who knows what it's not uncommon for there to be a new private equity partner at some stage in the future, and that can be a successful transaction for everybody involved. Just maybe somebody who has a different strategy, different geography, deeper pockets, whatever it might be, or a different type of trade transaction. What I'm interested in is how that drives the interaction with the investor, and does it make do the conversations tend to be either the board or the other informal conversations? Is it a strategic type conversation, or is it why is energy price up 5% last month?
We're very lucky with the investors we have.
Yeah,
extremely easy to deal with, extremely good, extremely knowledgeable, and add a lot to the direction of where we're going to go to.
Yeah.
And so we've gone from a structure now that's we've got a chairman, we've got the investment board, we've got the directors then that are driving the company. So yes, there's the strategic side, but then there's the day-to-day side, and it's no different. I mean, of course, in every single company everywhere in the world, there will be days when it's not all rosy. But as long as you're working through those problems, and I guess it'll be no different when you take in an investment. So nothing's going to change dramatically. It's every business, I guess, is a child. You've got to give it direction.
Yeah.
And it's got to be held accountable. And it needs praise when it does well, and it's no different. And
a lot of founders I've spoken to have said actually they welcome the challenge.
Yeah, likewise. Yeah,
that they want somebody objective to bring cold, hard, rational questions.
Likewise. No, I have to say, no regrets. Enjoy it.
Yeah.
And enjoying it probably more in certain days.
Yeah. No, that's a good philosophy. And when we were going through the process, one of the things we were very careful about was that the business would continue to thrive, and that the wider team wouldn't get unnecessarily unsettled by talk of a transaction or a talk of change.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the early days, and those were concerns, and right after we took the investment, then they were concerns, and we probably did lose some people, but we've also gained a lot of really good people, and certainly we're seeing the caliber of people that are now wanting to be involved in the company at a much higher level as well.
Yeah. And they can see where it can go and can see
Correct.
the ambition
of
the business.
Yeah. So yes, you need a mix of both. You need to be fit to accelerate all your key people that you have into bigger and better positions, but you also need a certain amount of new blood as well.
Yeah. And from a I guess there's a family business and there's a business owned by a family, and they may be slightly different things. But from people who have family businesses and so on, how do you see them adjusting to having private equity partners? Does that take a lot of preparation from a family point of view?
I don't really know how to answer that correctly for you, but I can only say in my case, very much as a family, it was a decision that was made. That this is the way we're going. This is what we're doing. This is the route we're taking.
Yeah.
And it's been very clear and very understood.
Yeah. And very successful. Yeah. Seamus, you've been a fantastic guest. Thank you very much. You've been very, very open. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you again to the KPMG team.